Ed, it is good to see you. We've been trying to schedule this thing. I'm so excited to have you here. How are you? Where are you in the world today, by the way?
I'm doing well. I am on the Gulf Coast of Florida. I'm in a little blip of a town called Matlacha.
Okay. Okay. No relation to the Nick Lachey. Wasn't he the boy band guy?
Yeah, no, not at all, not at all.
Good deal. And we're gonna post your stuff on the show notes, and people can go check out Ed on LinkedIn and in other places. So I'm just gonna jump right in. I want to talk about whatever you want to call this topic: customer experience, the business of people who do businesses with companies, all of us, and how we feel and feel those interactions go. You could pick whatever metric or thing you want to use. ACSI, American Customer Satisfaction Index, I think that's what they're called. They're a pretty popular one. They do a great marketing. They've got their charts that says, the rankings were here, and at some point they said around COVID it went down in the toilets. I don't know how it's doing now, but let's first just opine about this fact. I don't talk to anyone who tells me that they are loving all the companies they're dealing with. So tell me, where are the ratings today? How does the numbers compare to what my anecdotal info is?
Well, when you think about numbers, you have to take one thing with a grain of salt because it's an average, right?
Okay.
Of
Yep.
the great and the really bad. So it's a blend of good and bad. We don't like averages because again, it's mediocre. You're looking at what is it going to take to be mediocre? Let's look at ourselves or pick best in class and go with the best in class. But I think the ACSI is what 78%. That's the highest. It's almost the highest it's ever been,
Wow.
right?
So
But
things are great.
what does that mean?
Right.
It doesn't mean that you're a loyal customer. It doesn't mean that you're getting great experiences. It just means I'm satisfied. But it's 77 out of 100, and it's an average. So some have to be doing really well, and others are going to be down in the toilet bowl.
That is such an interesting way to do it. Let me ask you this related question as you work with clients. What do you tell them about these benchmarks? Do you tell them to just like, okay, yeah, it's a speedometer, just ignore it, like focus on you? How do you tell people to think about these benchmarks and things that get published?
As I said earlier, it's an average. It's an average of good and bad. If you want to benchmark yourself to mediocre, that's the average because it just includes everybody, bad and good. Benchmark against yourselves, right? Get your baseline to where you are today, and then where do you want to be into the future, and understand what those drivers are, the things you need to change to improve. But benchmark against yourself, or at least go benchmark against best in class, right? Who's the number one out there? And it may not be in your industry, right? The Amazons of the world have changed people's perception of what good is from the systems that they built in terms of how they communicate when you buy something. I mean, they're right on top of it.
You know, I want you to comment a little bit about customers. So I've been doing some research and writing for a book I'm working on, and one of the things I never want to abscond. I don't want to absolve customers from this conversation. And my sense is, I think customers have adjusted in some ways downward. I don't know if you've seen that in your work, meaning like they're kind of like, all right, well, I'm gonna call. It's got the 1-800 number. There's gonna be that. And at first they were screaming bloody, and I think over time they're just kind of like, this whole thing is. Let me lower my expectations a bit. Are you seeing that in some of your work?
You're right. I mean, and I feel the same way. It's like I expect it to be, and when it's not, I'm surprised. But
Like what?
but it's funny because when it's not, all they really did was they did their job. They did it well. They didn't go above and beyond. They did nothing special. They said they were going to do something, and they actually did it. Wow. No, the challenge is that people's expectations are higher, right? Today, when you think AI, most people think AI is like the best thing since sliced bread. It's going to be, things are going to be instant, things are going to be customized. It doesn't work that way. So there's definitely a misperception of, I think, in most consumers to reality, but they do bring one thing that's real, is that the experiences that we all have are inconsistent. You and I could go to the same place on the same day and buy the same exact thing, but have a completely different experience because of the people we're dealing with, because of what our expectation is, because they're not setting an expectation for us.
Yeah. I think to that point, one of the places, the rabbit holes I've been going has been this tension between marketing and service. Like we got, my theory of the case is we got specialized and industrialized. The marketing became a means to an end in and of itself, meaning I can go manufacture some emotion in you and get you to buy more stuff or buy stuff from me. Whereas they used to sort of be complementary. You buy this thing, I treat you well, I then publicize the fact that this thing's great, and then more people, they've kind of diverged. Where I'm going is, I'm finding that our marketing friends are ratcheting up the expectations. Like I watch, whether it's an ad, whether it's anything from brands I have done business with. And when I watch this thing, these guys are like curing cancer. We care about the human spirit. They are not toning it down like, well, this thing's you're gonna wait an hour. And
So
yeah.
yeah, it's not that they have to tone it down. The problem is that what we are communicating outward, what companies are communicating outward in their marketing, right, is not being fulfilled on the experience side. So
Right.
they're not the expectation that they set, that they sell, is not aligned to the actual experience that they are delivering, because there are silos. They don't communicate to one another.
Right. I want to jump into CX, customer experience, and I have my own thoughts and feelings about it, and this is really the crux of why I really wanted to talk about you, talk with you. Is Let's first start. How did you get into this CX? Then was this your fifth grade career day? Then you showed up to
Now,
school?
so my background is in consumer insights, market
Okay.
research.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
So I did that for 25 plus years. And I did lots of customer satisfaction work, brand tracking work. Towards the end of my true hardcore research career, managed a lot of clients that had voice of customer. Very early, this is very early stage voice of customer. And they loved everything we did. They loved the data, but then they said, now what? Well, as a true old school market researcher, we didn't help with we gave a report and we gave
There you
recommendations,
go.
but
Yeah.
we didn't help with the implementation and the strategy side. So I left that role. I was running a retail restaurant practice for a global company, and I found somebody that did customer experience. I'm like, what's customer experience? I had no idea what it was. It was still new. We're talking early 2000s, mid 2000s. I was like, oh, okay, I get it. This is everything that our clients wanted us to help them with that we said we
Right.
didn't do.
Right.
So that got me into my customer experience. I joined this company and I started a research department for them, because the research that we do drives all the consulting that we deliver. They go hand in hand. And with that, I learned journey mapping and
Yeah.
customer
Moment
experience
of
strategy
truth. Yeah.
design. Now that's what I do for a living.
Let me give you my experience. I have been in service and support, building technology for them, ran global support organizations, and then one day, no one cared about service and support anymore. Get on the CX train or get run over. And you'll see where I'm headed here. It then became, people just changed their LinkedIn from a service. Who wants to be service? Just became CX. Marketing people became CX. CX, 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 and it became this sort of ubiquitous thing. And when I would go look under the hood and say, what is this? I was like, okay, well, that sounds like service and support. Or I would look at, okay, this sounds like marketing. It'll sound like this thing. And I would get these answers like, well, CX is everything. They'll use other words, but it's the time the customer wakes up till the time and I sort of go, I don't know what to, I don't really know what to do with that as a discipline. I get the components of it. And so I sort of go, well, I'm not CX. Like I can give up the deal. I am a discrete part of the experience. I get that it's part of the experience. All that to ask you this question. Did you experience it like I did, where it just became this ubiquitous thing that took over everything? And did we lose the plot along the way?
We definitely lost the plot along the way. That is true. And I actually just wrote a blog on this yesterday on LinkedIn, because people now saying human experience. I'm like, no, it's always been about the human. Those that do it right, those that have been doing it, that are successful at doing it, have always known it's about people, whether it be customers, whether it be employees. It's people serving, helping, delivering to people. Tools are their enabler. So yes, along the way, CX has lost its way. Everything now, when you look at job searches, it's like, well, that's not CX, but it says customer experience. The term is thrown out there. And we did lose our way, and it's our own fault. The people that are in the business, it was an undefined thing, and it ran rogue, and everyone just threw their hat and called it different things, and came, oh, it's customer experience.
It's all experience, and it did. And then what ended up being clear to me, as one who, okay, I was like watching it, was the only thing that was clear was the damn NPS score, or whatever your du jour score is. So then I would meet a CX person. So basically, I ended up started putting them in a box of, you're the one who helps the company drive the scores up. I mean, that was kind of
well, that's cheap CX. I hate to say it, but that's I'm checking the box. We're all getting bonused on our scores. We want to improve our scores. Whether it really changes the value, the experience, and the value people see, that it doesn't matter.
I'm glad you said that, who's deep into this, because the other part that always drove me nuts was NPS did a marvelous job. The band, all of those guys came up with this, and a marvelous job of publicizing this thing and getting the C-suites to buy into it. And that became the gift and the curse of this thing, right?
Yeah, it was so simple. It was so simple. The simplicity of it allowed untrained people, to ask a question, manipulate the question, but not really understand how to design it the right way, or what we're trying, just to get a score. And everyone started doing it and say, oh, we're doing customer experience. Well, no, you're not.
Right. You are doing surveys. And that's, again,
I wouldn't even call that a survey.
Right.
As a market researcher, that's not even a survey. That's a question.
Get the question, they get in. And so then you see this disconnect. I was at one of these customer what do you call it, this user group things. So I am watching on stage the worst company I know in terms of customer experience. I'm a customer of theirs. Like I just mentioning the name gets my blood boiling. And they are up there touting their great NPS scores. And I wanted to bring pitchforks. And the dissonance to me was incredible. How is that? How did we get here, and what does that kind of look like?
So two things happened. One was NPS came out, and the simplicity of it, executives loved it. Oh, it's one number, it tells me how it was, and they did. You're right. They did a great job marketing it. So that was one thing. NPS hit at the right time. They promoted the hell out of it. The simplicity. It was sold in at the executive level. One number tells you how you're doing. Okay. At that same time, there was a rise in VOC platform providers, right? I'm not going to drop any names, but we know who they are.
Right.
I look at them and I say, you're basically a SaaS provider. You offer a SaaS product, and your goal is to sell licenses, sell seats, and
Yes.
that's it.
Yep.
Right? So they took advantage of this, and they were able to build this foundation of transactional research. You need to understand at the point of sale level
Mhm.
what's happening. And
Yep.
they built these programs. Internet was still kind of blowing up at that time, and it was expensive to buy the software, to buy into the platform, but we're offering you reams and reams of data, all
That's right.
this insight
That's right.
when you break it down that way for pennies compared
That's
to
right.
traditional market research. And they with NPS did a great job in selling in transactional surveys, dashboard reporting, key measures, NPS, customer sat, ease of use,
Hmm.
all going to solve your problem, your
That's right.
customer experience problem. It's not. That's not going to solve the problem. But they were sold on that, and it was an easy way for executives to say, we're doing customer experience. Look at our score. We moved our score. 90% of our people like us. But why are your sales down?
Right. It's performative, right?
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
so. Having said all that, I want to get constructive here. I would like for you, Ed, put you on the spot here. Explain what the heck CX is to a fifth grader.
Okay. I have to start by this caveating when you do research
Yes.
nationally
Yes.
for healthcare,
Right.
you have to write the survey at a fourth grade reading level.
So we're already
Which is kind of scary to
that is
begin
not
with.
and
But when you said fifth grader,
adults are filling out this survey, but we have to
yeah,
write it in fourth grade.
yeah,
Fantastic. Okay.
yeah. Okay. That's required by law. You have to write, it's like blows
Yeah.
my mind. Okay. So customer experience for a fifth grader. It means whether you're happy or not. It's whether or not someone is happy. Okay.
Yeah.
When they
Yeah.
buy something or when you get help by somebody. That's the simplest way. How do you feel after buying something or having somebody help you? Okay. So think about it this way. Imagine you go to an ice cream shop, right? You walk in and person says, "Hi, how are you?" Nice, they're talking to you, they're friendly, they're telling you about the different flavors, and you tell them what flavor you want, and they have it, and you get it, and it's wrapped beautifully, and it's on a napkin, and it's like wow. You take that first bite, and you're so excited, it just tastes amazing, right? That's a great experience, right? Now, what happens if you walked into that same ice cream parlor and you're ignored? They're
Mm,
talking to all the adults, but they're not paying attention to you.
mm.
They finally, you pick what flavor you want, and they don't have it. They give you a different flavor that you settled for, and it's dripping down the edges. Your hands are getting dirty. How does that make you feel? So, when you break it down, that if I had to describe it to a fifth grader, that's how I would do it.
I love that. I mean, you didn't mention anything about an NPS score, though. I mean, that's
No, it's how you feel. Now, you could take it one step further and say, would you recommend us to your friends?
right
Well, why would you?
after
But why would you do that?
right.
I don't care what the score is. Why would you do it? Oh, because we made you feel this way, good or bad.
I want to double click into what you just said, into that question of why, because again, back to losing the plot. We like everything else. Too much of a good thing. We made it about the number. I'm 80. What the heck does that actually mean? So talk to me about how you're thinking about the present and the future on that question of why, especially now that we have better horsepower and analytics. Do you think we're headed into are you pushing people into a place of the qualitative data at scale over the quantitative? Is that kind of the
They
shift?
go hand in hand.
Okay.
There's
Say
definitely
more.
not. They can't have one without the other. In my opinion, there's a time and a place to do market research, right? Which is not just a simple one question survey and a why, right? But there's a time and place to do real market research, and there's a time and a place for qualitative. And when you fuse the two together, when you fuse in that transactional data, that's when you start able to see lots of great things. But here's the problem: is with NPS, people either ask why or they don't ask why. A lot of people do ask the reason why, right? But they do nothing with it.
That's right.
And
That's right.
that doesn't matter how much data you have, how many dashboards, what the analytics you're doing on it, if you're not doing anything with them. And that's the biggest problem is companies have all this data, they have all these insights, but then when it comes time to actually drive change, it's not happening because there are other priorities. It's not deemed important, or they can't justify the expense to value, right? The rate, the ROI on it. So nothing gets done. Or they're in silos and I have the data, I know the problems, but Fred and Betty and those other two departments, we don't talk to one another, but they're the ones that actually own that experience. But we're in different silos. I worked for one client where they called the different departments towers.
Towers. Okay.
Towers.
Okay.
Now, how much of a silo is that? You're in one tower, I'm in another tower.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I think it's all in the name, right? Like you don't even need to say anything else. Like it's all in the name. Like you call it towers, I don't even need to hear more. I wanna go to leadership for a second. So for a while there, chief customer officers were the hot new thing, and everyone was getting them. I'll give you my very small data set of how I've experienced chief customer officers. I've got a couple of friends who are in the role or have had the role, and when they're done, I'm usually like, "Well, it sounds like you're the CMO," or I would ask, "But the service center, the service center doesn't report to you." "No, okay," and this doesn't report, and then I go, you know, what is the role? And I've gotten this varied kind of response that made me sort of question, should this role exist, or is it already in the CMO office? How do you think about this role?
It's a complex answer. And it gets back to what I talked about earlier, where, the silos, right?
Yes,
So I do believe that every organization is different. The culture is different.
of course.
They have different objectives.
Yeah.
So where should whether you call it chief customer officer or where should the CX role fit into an organization is going to vary and depend upon what your culture is and what your goals are. It could be in operations. It could be in marketing, right? But my recommendation is that you have customer experience, a CCO, chief customer officer, as a standalone department or role. And the rationale for that is they're Switzerland. They're neutral, right? If it's in operations, well, then it's going to have an operations focus. If it's in marketing, it's going to have a marketing focus. The role of customer experience is not one department over another. It is collectively, holistically looking at the organization and steering everybody down the same path, right? Getting them aligned and thinking the same way. So you can't really have someone who's responsible for operations lead that. Again, depending on the culture, because they're going to be biased to their teams, to what their goals are.
Of course.
So I'm in favor of CX being standalone because they need to be neutral. They need to look holistically at the organization, and they need to be able to break down the silos and help everyone collaborate and understand where we're going, why we're going there. They should be knowing everything about the customer. They have to work very closely with research. They have to work very closely with HR because it's all about change management. It's all about managing the people, right? The mindsets and the behaviors that we have. And they have to work closely with finance. But holistically, they have to be responsible for the thought process of the organization as it relates to customers.
I love the clarity of it. I want to double click into that for a second and dish out some unsolicited advice. Many organizations started pulling back on CX, which I don't think it's constructive. I have my beef with these CX practitioners and the vagueness and all of that, but again, as someone who cares deeply in my expertise around service and support, I know that that is not a good signal. But how do we, the practitioners today, particularly those in industry, those who are at a company doing that, what advice would you have for them to where you're not at a place where the company's sort of like, yeah, we're looking to cut something.
Your
Sales are
CFO
down.
has
It's
to
you.
be your best friend
Here.
because that's what that. Hey, at the end of the day, either you're a profit center or you're a cost center,
Right.
right?
Right.
Now, CX again, it's holistic, right?
That's right.
Now, you can't say this one thing happened because we did this in customer experience, right? Because there's so many moving parts. But if you could justify all the things you're doing, work with your finance team to say, well, where are we in these? You can come up with a measure, a value for what you're doing. You need to be we need to have, your CFO attached to your hip. They're your best friend.
Agreed. You made me think about something when you were in your answer from earlier. We're in this kind of AI, more agentic, less human, let's put more automation in the space. I wonder how someone like you thinks about, let's assume that the grand vision of the Bill McDermotts and the Benioffs come to fruition, that we do have increasingly more, insert whatever percentage you want in there. I now think about it from the context of was the customer made happy or not? If that then becomes the standard, so now we now have data that says, yeah, they didn't like this experience. There was with the bot. I now think about how I go about fixing that. Like versus, they didn't have this good experience with a human. We already have some of that today, but if you imagine, close your eyes with me and imagine a world where 80-90% of it is really at least the transactional pieces are increasingly with machine. How does that change, if any, this discipline?
So I think that AI is fully capable of doing simple transactions. A lot of the things we experience now with AI and chatbots and all that is because they weren't tested. They weren't really programmed. I hate to say programmed the right way, right? I really dislike the term that they use. They say, well, it was a hallucination, not a mistake. Really? A hallucination? Okay. But that was but going back to your question. I think AI is great. I think chatbots are great for simple things. Where it gets complicated and hard and where they're really failing today is I'll try the chatbot, but how easy is it for me when I have a problem to say agent and get to an agent right away? Or how easy is it for the chatbot to understand, oh, there's a problem by what I'm typing or the questions that I'm asking, right? When I write "fu" in the damn keyboard to a chatbot, there's a problem. But the challenge is companies today are not geared. They're not set up for that transition from automation to live because it's costly.
It's expensive. I
And they
was
don't want that. AI is a
they,
cost saver.
exactly, and so I'll even throw an interesting one your way. I was having a conversation with a COO of a large multinational. We're having this conversation about this very topic, and I asked a question. I said, "What if your customer, regardless of who they are, what have you, just said as a preference, they happen to be a financial institution, I would like to talk to a human about my balance." And he's going, "Why would they want that?" And I'm just saying, just entertain me for a second. I know the app exists. I know whatever exists, but I'm going to make clear what I want is I want to have a conversation about my account balance. His head nearly exploded. And he goes, "Well," and the context was, I was trying to tell him we'd done some research. It was impossible for that to happen. Like they'd built a system that will not let you. I tried. There was no getting out of. If you declared your intention that this was about a bank balance, they had decided there is no need for anyone to talk to you. And so, if I think about what you just said, which is the switching from bot to it, but then there's even just the. I just want the ability to just say, for my own reasons. I know there's an automation, or maybe it failed, but do I really need to explain myself? I just would just for this moment would like to talk to another human being about this. And many organizations have built a system that you have to game the system. You have to do all kinds of gymnastics to get there. And I think that then's going to come to a head here in the near future.
I agree with you. I think we tolerate it because we tolerate it as long as it's not something that is going to harm us in the long run. Meaning, as me, Ed Murphy, and my cable company, I know what's going to happen. You know what I expect. I expect it. Am I going to change? Probably not, because is it going to be any better? But there is going to come a point in time where those companies that are doing it right are going to start gaining more share.
Yes.
It
yes.
is going to happen. I'm going to throw something out there just for the sake of it. 2 or 4. Are you doing it to your customer or for your customer?
I love that.
So next time someone say, well, are you making this decision for your customer or to your customer? Are you doing it for them to add value, to help them achieve what they want to achieve? Or are you doing it to them because it's what you want? Saving money or whatever it's going to be.
I really, really love that framing. I'm going to have to, because I see us doing the same thing with the call center employee or the service employee as well. Even if you just read some of the content, I'm always like, it's like, hey, we've got this AI thing we want to use, and we're going to jam it into the call center or into the service center, into the drive-through, versus hey, we noticed you drive-through employee, we noticed you call center employee are struggling with this. We have brought this stuff for you. I love that framing to help you, not to you. That's brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, there was just something today that I was reading, the Chipotle CEO. All right. One is he didn't say that, he didn't use the word mandate, but it was implied on the earnings call that he wants the employees to smile more. You can't mandate that.
Soviet Union.
It's like their quality measures are good. All the processes are good, but they were dinged by consumers or customers on friendliness of employees. Well, it's an intrinsic thing. You can't mandate that I smile. So he says, and I read this, and I'm like, but what are you doing to motivate them, to give them a reason to smile? I mean,
versus
you can't just say smile.
Smile or else, Ed.
Yeah.
Smile or else. Like this is giving dear leader vibes. No, this has been great. I want to look ahead and ask you: Are you optimistic, and what makes you optimistic?
Let's say I lean towards being optimistic, but with a bullshit detector that's always on.
Fair. I've
I'm
read your
from New
stuff.
York. Everything's bullshit. I don't believe you.
I've read your stuff.
So I'm not blindly optimistic. I question things. It's not all about doom, but it's like, let me think about this. Let me ask the questions. Let me understand it. I ask hard questions. I mean, if you read my stuff, I ask hard questions. I won't sugarcoat things. If your baby's ugly, sorry, your baby's ugly. But here's the thing. I'm also not I'm not pessimistic. It's not pessimism. It's leading with a sharp lens. How's that?
I love it. On your way out, what are people not talking and thinking enough about in this area? Because AI has sucked all the energy. It's like, what bot, this, that. What are we not talking enough about, thinking enough about in CX?
Two things. All right, if I had to say two things and that was all I was allowed, it would be anything you do with customers, you have to look at employees also.
Amen.
CX is about mindsets and behaviors. Okay, that's one thing. The second one is that technology is an enabler.
Mm,
That's all it is. It's an enabler.
mm.
It still has to be built by people, supported by people. You know, as we talked earlier, that transition from, well, it's too complex for the chat bot to address my issue, seamlessly do that transition. So it's no matter, again, mindsets, behaviors internally affect external, right? And then it is technology is there to help support, but it still comes back to people. And we can't forget that. There's
Love it.
lots more around it, but those would be the
Right.
two things.
I love it. Ed, thanks so much for coming on the show. We got to have you back. Ed's one of the truth tellers, no BS guys in the space. There's too many fluffy pieces driving around. Please follow Ed, and if nothing else, he's going to challenge you to think differently. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. You've been listening to an Amos Talks production.